So how does the Sony A7R Mark II perform for wedding photography? In this video, I'll be sharing my personal experience and also show you some examples of a recent wedding I shot. So let's get it. Hey, what's up? I'm Omar El-Takrori, and this channel is all about helping you take better photos. So if you're interested in upping your photo game, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when new videos are posted, which I try to do weekly. Also, make sure to check out the description below for my gear list or my setup for this wedding in regards to the lenses I use, and if there's any information I forgot. But other than that, let's get into it. So I've been shooting with the Sony mirrorless camera since November of 2016, and I started with the Sony A7 Mark II, which was a great camera. I actually did a video on it. I'll put that link in the description. And I used that for just 3 months until I decided to upgrade to the Sony A7R Mark II. I felt once I got the thing down in regards to the ergonomics and how the buttons worked, that I should really just go full-fledged and get like the legit photo camera that Sony's been and everybody else has been talking about. And so I've had that camera since about February, and I've done a lot of photo shoots with it. I've done portrait shoots, I've done shoots with families, couples, and it's been great. I can't complain. Obviously, there's a few things that it gets a lot of flack for, which I guess I can intro the video that, a lot of people have said this, the Sony A7R Mark II isn't a good wedding camera. And I think the fair reasons, which I will say that I would totally agree, would be the image size and the battery life. But I don't know if that completely disqualifies this camera for weddings. So I did shoot my first wedding, and I wanted to talk about first the things I love about the camera and the awesomeness in regards to using it for this wedding. And then I'll talk about the cons, or the things I didn't like so much about the camera, which I think there really isn't that perfect camera quite yet that any brand has released. Just a quick power tip too, with the image file size being so big on this camera, I've seen, when I go to weddings as a guest, and I always watch the photographers there, sometimes I just see them, I don't know, maybe I'm just different. I see them just like holding it up, and then they're just holding their burst button down, like, so it'll be just like, let's say, here's a perfect example. If it's time for the toast, and then you got the best man doing their speech. Literally, I've seen this. A guy had a Sony A6500 with a 70 to 200 lens, super zoom lens, big setup, and he was just holding it like this, and he was bursting forever. And like, I don't know about that. Like, you're telling me, like, so during this toast, you took 200 photos, like, for what? One thing I teach, and I would say one of my top 5 tips in photo taking or photography in general, photo taking, but yeah, is shooting with your ear. So that means listening to actually what's going on and what you're shooting. During the wedding, my friend Ray, who was the groom, he cracked a joke during his vows, and he started laughing. Olivia started laughing, his wife, and the crowd started laughing. When he cracked that joke, I wasn't just bursting just for the heck of it, whether he cracked a joke or not. No, I was actually listening to his vows. I wasn't, like, a lot of people take pictures of people talking, and their mouths are like wide open, like, and you can actually limit the amount of photos you take if you're listening to what's going on. So in the event of a toast, listen, there's gonna be a light moment, there's gonna be a pause, but you're listening also, not just with your eye, you're not just looking with your eye, but you're listening with your ear. That was just a side power tip. Sorry if I went too long, but let's get into the things I love about the Sony A7R Mark II. So the first thing I would say I loved about this camera was the overall image quality. I mean, when you combine the Zeiss lenses and the Sony mirrorless body, you honestly, I don't know if you can get a sharper image with another setup. People would say Leica or, art lenses. I've seen them all, and there's something about the Zeiss technology in combination with the Sony mirrorless technology that there's just like this level of sharpness that comes out. Also, I would say the quality in the sense of, so if I made a mistake and took an image that was too dark, or not the best, just the amount of, I guess you could say, grace there was with my raw image, that I was able to bring up colors or bring down colors or unsaturate colors. Just the ability to literally work in the image regardless of the image I actually took, definitely is a super plus. Because I would say There was definitely some dark images that I took, but nonetheless, like you know, bump up the exposure a little bit in Lightroom and then it's a whole new picture. And so I think the amount of quality it retains when you're taking raw images is definitely awesome. And that kind of leads me to my second thing that I loved the most was the low light capabilities. You know, I think I need to learn more and more that this camera can really push the boundaries when it comes to ISO. But you can get incredible images for with really high ISO. I actually took this image that you're seeing right now. This was like an engagement my brother had, or a proposal. My brother proposed to his now fiance, which is awesome. But this image was taken at 20,000 ISO. And I've gotten text messages from this image being posted saying like, bro, this is the illest picture I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, when I took this image, I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I was at 20,000. Not saying I'm gonna do that regularly, but in the event, if I need to. And you know, it was dark, but I was at, you know, around 2000 or so, but you could see in these pictures, it doesn't seem like it was that dark at all, but it was fairly dark and the images just came out great. And I don't know, just like the A7R II doesn't get as much praise for its low light capabilities, and I even think in video, but I would definitely say that's one thing I loved was the low light capabilities, especially for a wedding. Like you talk about like the ability to not really choose your lighting. This is a beast in whatever circumstance you can, but in the event where you can control the lighting, it's awesome. I'd say the third thing that I loved about this camera is definitely the body itself, and obviously something I got used to earlier in the days of having the Sony A7 Mark II, but also the lightness. You know, like that wedding was easily a 10-hour day. I got there at 1 and we didn't leave till like 10 or 11, I think 11, and you know, it was like nothing. It was like not having anything at all, you know, and there's definitely something that we don't think about, but when you're holding a DSLR for 10 hours on your wrist, like this, your wrist just, it starts to like get, you know, really tired, and you know, you can do this hand, but your images start showing that you're getting tired, and I don't know, I'm not like, you know, for whatever it's worth, it's just the light setup, and something I definitely appreciated. And then also speaking to it's like, I don't know if you would say the durability or weather resistantness, but this wedding was in Houston, and you know, I live in Las Vegas where it's super dry, it's hot, but it's dry, thank the Lord. But Houston, I mean, it was like 100 degrees humidity, and so when I went outside with it, it just fogged up. But in the event, like I just had to wait about 5 minutes or so and just hang for a second until it adjusted, which did show that like it didn't get hot. Like I would go from inside to outside, and you know, shooting as much as I did in the during the ceremony portion, and then when we went outside to do our little session with the couple, definitely held its own, and you know, like the image didn't suffer at all. I just had to wait out just a little bit. That's like even with my glasses though. I walk out and my glasses freaking fog up, and you're like, shoot, I look like an idiot. But that's the Houston humidity, which best believe when I came home, it was super dank, that the air was nice and dry. Even though it was 115 degrees, it felt like 50 degrees because Houston is sticky. Also, I mean, something I even loved about my Canon 6D when I had it, but cameras that I have is just, this is just like a standard for me now, is the ability to send your image to your smartphone. There is always downtime in a reception, and you know, I find that downtime, you know, when everybody's eating, you don't have to necessarily be taking pictures unless the couple really wants you to shoot pictures of people there or what have you. But typically you get a chance to sit down and have yourself a free meal, a $50 plate of steak, some little mashed potatoes, and your asparagus. And that's when I take my phone out, and I get at least 7 to 10 images real quick from my camera that I think would just be awesome. Because like I said, one of my pet peeves is when couples will post an iPhone image of their wedding on their wedding day. Not poppin'. So best believe I sent him 10 photos, and so that night he was able to put, you know, one of the photos that we took in the while the sun was setting and he was carrying his wife, and it was just an awesome shot. But he was able to post that night. You know what that speaks for the photographer? It helps your brand. It helps everything you're doing. That's my dog running in. And it's just a good look on you if you're able to deliver in a timely, quick manner, not sacrificing on image quality though. So I just really love that feature to send to the phone. And you know, I do add a little bit of VSCO cam, which I'll also do another video of that, how I just process images on my phone. But nonetheless, giving the couples images to choose from so they can post it on their wedding day. How awesome is that? Another feature that I loved about the Sony A7 Mark II was is the ability to crop your image before you take it. So it's the APS-C mode, and you turn that on, and it actually makes your camera kind of like a APS-C or crop sensor. But what I love about it more than actually zooming in my image after and post is that it retains the image quality. So I could stand in the back of the room. You know, I shot a lot of the wedding on just my 55, but my ability to put in an APS-C mode, it turns it into like an 80mm or so. And it just is super helpful in that regard, just being able to jump to and from. And I use that feature a lot. And so that's definitely a feature I love about the Sony A7R. Another feature is the silent shooting feature. And I know a lot of cameras have this, but it's super silent on Sony, as in it doesn't even make any noises. It does. One con to that though is once it's on, you eliminate the ability to shoot high continuous photos. So you can't hold down and burst, but you can take as many as you can with your finger on and off the shutter button. But I love that because there are intimate moments during a wedding where you don't want your shutter just while like the pastor's praying or the couple is doing something. And so when it is very quiet, I do shut it off just to be, I guess, I don't know, respectful and polite. And also another thing I love about this camera is the continuous autofocus. And I really only shoot in two different focus modes. It's the single shot autofocus and the continuous autofocus. And the reason why I love the two is because continuous is always used when there's motion. When you want to capture somebody just moving, and I'll do a tutorial video on this, but for instances where people are walking up and down the aisle, but I don't want to keep having to refocus every time. But once I hold down on my back button, that green spot thing comes up and it just follows the person, whoever you're on. It's great for shooting things, people walking across streets, or anytime you want your subjects to move and catch something in motion. Continuous autofocus is just killer, especially in the Sony camera. Just being able to just track while your lens is open. It's like the coolest thing ever. Something I never experienced with the DSLR for sure. Now on to the things I didn't love so much about the camera. I wouldn't say are deal breakers, just to preface, but I would say number one is the battery life. I have a ton of batteries. I have like 5 batteries, and for at least the wedding, I went through I think 4, which I mean in a 10-hour time frame is, I don't know, for whatever it's worth. You know, some people, especially Canon, kills it on this, but you probably just have 1 battery and you're good. If not, you put in the next one and you barely use it. But for this, yes, I had to swap out batteries, and I know there's an adapter that you can put 2 batteries, but even then, I don't want to double the weight or even add more weight to the camera because I do love how light it is. But my solution to that issue is just to always keep one of those batteries in my pocket. They're very small, and once I take one out, I put it on a charger, even though I have enough if for some reason I couldn't find an outlet. But that's definitely one thing, is the battery life. You'll find that in every video that the Sony A7R Mark II doesn't have the best battery. And also number 2 would be the image size. And yes, it's 42 megapixels, and you're taking, this wedding I took 2,000 images. I went through 2 SD cards, partially so I think it was user error. I forgot to take off my RAW and JPEG, which I took RAW and JPEG of every picture I took. That doesn't help. But in the event, it's still a lot of, the images are still big. But I just, my workflow goes around that. My computer, my laptop is always really clear. And then whenever I'm working on a project, it's on my computer, and when I'm done with it, it goes on my hard drive. Some people like to keep things forever, but for me, I do leave it on a hard drive that it's 8 terabytes, and so it'll eventually fill up. But for now, it's not an issue. Yes, there's the buffering when you take a bunch of images, but again, like I said, I shoot with intentionalities, and so whether that's hearing what's going on and shooting what needs to be shot, or there are the instances where, yes, burst is necessary, like the bride and groom walking down the aisle for the first time, or the reveal of the father seeing the bride. So there are moments, so yes, you want to just burst away, but in those instances, it's okay that once it's done, you're done, and it loads, it takes 10 seconds and you're good to go. So I don't think those are honestly the 2 things. Those battery life and the image size, and I don't think those are deal breakers for the Sony A7R II to take it completely off the wedding photography list. It is not a deal breaker. The camera functions amazing other than the buffering, and overall, I loved it. I will shoot 1,000 more weddings with this camera. I have no plans of upgrading anytime soon, and that's a good place to be. And at the end of the day, I think there isn't that perfect camera. People have opinions, but you know, I think it's just a strategy to make money. The reason why they would release a camera and then it has this feature, but then the new one lacked that new feature. However, it is able to do this. It's like this crazy world that we live in for technology, and I really think it's just to make more money, you know, to get people to buy it for this reason and that reason. But you can make whatever you have work. That's something I'll just always be preaching as long as I can, is that the camera you have is the best camera to use. A lot of people look at my Instagram and they see my photos on my website, and immediately the first question is, what camera do you use? And my response is obviously the Sony A7. I use Sony, and but it's unfortunate that that's the first thing that they always ask when, you know, when you see a good image. It's like, who took that photo? You know, you can take a photo with all kinds of things and make it look good, but it's definitely the shooter. The shooter is the one that controls the quality, that controls the actual content of the photo. And so there's a lot of things that go into it that people don't realize, and they just want to know your setup, you know. And so I think it goes way beyond that sometimes. And, you know, don't be discouraged if the camera you have isn't good enough because it's not a Sony A7R. I think it's good enough, and it probably can take great pictures. So I got 2 questions. If you can answer them in the comments below, I'd love to start some conversation. The first one is, what camera do you use for weddings? And number 2 would be, what stuff would you like to see on this channel? You know, I am a Sony shooter, so I will be doing Sony things, but I also just love photography in general, so I'll be doing tips as well. But if there's anything specifically you want me to explain, or tutorials, or what have you, please put it in the comments section below. Again, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe. If you found value, hit that like. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. And then other than that, I'll see you in the next video next week. Keep it locked. I'll see you soon. Deuces.